podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello everyone, it's Gav, and before we begin, I want to let you know that this episode of Howie the Podcast is sponsored by Live Score Bet, a proud principal partner of Sunderland AFC. And if you're looking to get started, Live Score Bet have got a cracking welcome offer for new customers. All you have to do is bet £10 on sports and you get £30 in free bets. It's as simple as that. So, if you're ready to join the action, make sure you're doing it with Live Score Bet, the home of total betting. This offer is available to new members only, and you need to put £10 or more on a bet on sports within 14 days of opening your account. Free bets are valid for 7 days, £20 to use on Sportsbook, £10 on Bet Builder. T's and C's and deposit exclusions apply. Bet responsibly, over 18s only. Hello everyone and welcome to Howie the Podcast, sponsored by Live Score Bet. It's Gav and you join us very, very early on the morning after Sunderland's defeat away at Brentford. Unfortunately, got battered 3-0. Could have been a lot worse, to be fair. We're about to get into it. And I think by the end of this, hopefully, this will feel like therapy, because that's what I need after watching that game. First up this morning, we've got Ant with us. Morning, mate.
Good morning. I think I sound a bit more John than what I am, but yeah, I think tired heads, tired minds, and that's just the podcasters. So there we go.
Yes, that's it. That's it, mate. We're also joined today by our very special guest. It's Matty Hewitt, who is the senior sports central writer at Reach PLC. Used to cover off Sunderland for the Evening Chronicle. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having us on. Like you say, tired one this morning, but yeah, I'm sure we'll get stuck into things.
Yes, it is very, very early in the morning, and normally we bounce into these because we're buzzing with Sunderland, playing very well and getting points and stuff, but it felt like a game too far, Matty, didn't it, for Sunderland, I think, this one. We all know how stretched the squad's been. We all know how many players are missing. I think, you know, if you're counting players who probably would have been on the pitch had they been available, we're probably talking 6 players. So it's a, big hole in the squad. We've done pretty well to get through this period since the AFCON started, without losing a game up until this point. But yeah, I mean, we'll get into the ins and outs of the performance and stuff, but it didn't it? It just felt like one game too much for us.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think there was signs. I think, look, on the whole, the performance was probably the worst we've seen this season. And I think to say that in January, to have only been beaten 3-0, like, away from home the first time this season, I just think, like you say, it wasn't a great performance. There were signs at Spurs, I think, particularly in the first half, of just, I don't know what it is. They just look sluggish, and I don't know if, like you say, the lack of options that Labrie has, I don't know whether that comes into play. It's not just, the starting 11, it's the players he's able to bring off the bench. Yeah, it was just a real disappointing performance. Like you say, it was a game that was a step too far.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? But, I probably feel you're probably the same as me. I'm probably a lot more considered this morning than I was when I was watching it. I'm already kind of over this, but that doesn't mean we've got to just brush this off. There's a lot we've got to take from this game, and of course we're going to get into it today, but it's not nice losing games. We aren't used to it. If you go all the way back to, I don't know, first season in League One in 2018, we're talking about, we've had 8 years where Sunderland don't lose that often, really. So when we do lose, it hurts, doesn't it? And especially when it's 3-0, it's sore.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously, we're Sunderland fans, we're used to losing games. I've seen us lose a lot over the years, but it's just, I think last night was just a manner a little bit. Obviously going 1-0 down, and yes, it's a nice goal, and their striker's on fire, isn't he? Thiago, he's absolutely smashing it. I think it's just after. And I know we'll get into the big elephant in the room, the penalty, but after that, just the way the heads seem to just drop, and they just seem to be thinking, yeah, we're going to lose. And we had fought hard to get back into the game. The second half, it seemed to be a lot like the Spurs game, where we would poor first half, getting back into it, look as if we were going to get a goal. We didn't, and then but after the second goal went in, you saw heads drop, and that was the little bit of where I'm thinking, just. Especially with Granit Xhaka on the pitch, you're thinking, what's happening there? But you can kind of maybe say, it's been a busy January so far, busy Christmas period as well as that. And the fact that we've got that many players away, it's possibly expected, but it happens. It is what it is. I'm certainly not as angry as I was last night, although it is still a little bit bitter.
Yeah. I've said this often, Matty, that when you watch the first 5-10 minutes of a Sunderland game, you can kind of gauge the way it's going to go. And that was definitely the case with this one. Just started slow again, as you mentioned. It was a bit like the Spurs game where there were a lot of stray passes, players just not zipping it around as quickly as they normally do. We didn't play with any sort of confidence. And I mean, we capitulated eventually, but I just got that feeling from the first 5-10 minutes that this was going to probably go one way eventually.
Yeah, no, completely agree. I mean, for me, that's something that's, from watching Sunderland, I think it's crept in the last couple of weeks. I think back to the Man City game, and obviously you're talking about Man City, the form that they were in. There was a point in the game where I think Alderete and Mukiele had like bumped into each other 3 times in that game, and you got the same. I don't want to see it creep in and become a trend, but Sunderland had chances in the game against Man City where obviously the passing in the final third let them down, and I thought there was too many times again at Brentford where Sunderland looked to just start to get into a little passage of play where they're playing out from the back, working their way through the phases, and it just broke down. I think it was in the build-up to the first goal where Dingra loses the ball out on the wing, and he's got I'm not saying it's an easy pass, but he's got a bit of a simple pass inside, and the quality's just not there. And obviously, like you say, I think that's been my biggest frustration in the past couple of weeks is that, the little bit of quality isn't there going forward. Will we see that come back when, the players return from AFCON? I'd like to hope so. But certainly, like you say there, the first 5-10 minutes, I mean, Roots had to tip that one over the bar, didn't he? You could sort of sense it. There has been games where Sunderland have played this year and they haven't made necessarily the best of start, but, they haven't given anything away. But this time, like you say, it just felt like it was a game too far.
Yeah, the starting 11, and I'm just going to put my hand up here. I guessed it perfectly right on the prediction show. I said that I thought Rigg would come in on the right-hand side and that we would make a change in defence and put Hume over to left-back. But when you look at the options we had available, Wilson Isidore didn't make it, obviously failed whatever the late fitness test was that they put him through. The bench, we had Dennis Cirkin, Eliza Mayenda, Romain Mundle, but you look at the other options, and it's no disrespect to these players. It's just a case of, we're in the Premier League and we're playing at the top end of the Premier League. So then you look into the likes of Dan Neil, Luke O'Neill, and Patterson, Hjelde, Jones, Tutierov, who were on the bench. We are very stretched, as we know. So the starting 11, I mean, given what we had available, what did you think when you first saw it drop? Because obviously the big contentious one was Rigg playing on the right, which people seem to be losing their minds about at the minute, but I didn't mind it necessarily. I could kind of see the logic in it, but it's fair to say Reggie was kind of hamstrung to how many changes he could actually make given the frequency of games we've had recently.
Yeah, and that's the problem. I mean, we're sitting here on the 8th of January and we've played 3 games, and it's like, with a squad of 4, you think he's going to use 14 players there, like out of 3, obviously we've had Dan Neil coming on for 10 minutes or whatever, but like the starting 11 was probably 11 out of 14, and he's got to do that 3 times in 7 days, which is absolutely, it's impossible, and it's proven so last night. I think, with that, I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but the Rigg selection was probably the wrong one, because he did get brushed off the ball a little bit too easy, didn't he, last night? I thought, to be honest, when he had the ball, he was all right. I thought he was fine. I think he has been fine. He's not a winger. It's the bare fruit of it. He's centre midfielder, has to do a job out wide. He's doing it to the best of his ability, and it's unfair that he's getting all. I think it's really unfair. He's getting all. He's certainly coming for some criticism, but you know what? He's been put on there to do a job, and for me, I don't think he's been too bad. Obviously, he's made the changes after 50 minutes because it wasn't working, so that's fair enough. But you've got to give him a go. So I was with you. I thought it was probably the right team for the opposition, but it just, like I said, just ended up being, we haven't lost that game because of Chris Reid playing right midfield. That's for certain. So it just ended up being one step too far. And obviously with Dennis Cirkin, he's only come back from injury. He's been out 5 months. So he can't play 3 games in a week. It's totally unfair to ask him to do that. So, he's just doing what he has to do. And Regis is playing, like I say, playing with very, very limited tools in his arsenal. So, it's like I say, it's disappointing, but, we're there.
Yeah, the team, Matty, was, like I say, you could have started Cirkin and Mayenda, but Ant's right, I think. They've both not played a great deal of football recently, so to expect them to be able to keep playing every couple of days is a risk. And we as fans and as people who stand back and just watch games, we don't have the data. We don't, they're analysing how each player on a day-to-day basis is recovering, and we hear about red zones and things like that. I'm sure Lebris is under pressure from fitness staff to kind of rest players when he can, because otherwise you start putting players into a position where they could get injured. And I think that's when you've not got many options. He is kind of, it's difficult, isn't it? I wouldn't want that job to be swapping people in and out.
Yeah, I think that's something that Regis Lebris done quite well, to be fair, since he's came into Sunderland, is give players time, give them the right sort of minutes to bring them back into the fold. I mean, we've seen Mayenda hardly play in the last, 3 months, something like that. Hadn't started since August prior to the festive period, and then all of a sudden he's playing games again. I completely agree with Ant on the Chris Riggs stuff. I mean, I remember, slight tangent, I remember Mike Dodds talking a lot about Joe Bellingham when he was playing everywhere, when he was playing in every position. And he said that when Rig came into the side, that playing him on the wing in the Championship would ease him into games a bit better. Now that's sort of like become his position, really, hasn't it? Like, if we can't get him in that number 10 in that midfield role, we'll sort of stick him out wide. And I do think that's detrimental to him. It's not a slight on Chris Rigg, like you say. He wasn't the reason that they lost that game. Part of me, now I don't know if it's a bit because I'm a Patrick Roberts fan, but part of me has a bit of a frustration that they don't have a player like Paddy Roberts who can play out on that side of the pitch. I just think games like yesterday would have been ready-made. Now I know you can have question marks over his output in the final third, etc. But I feel that he's a type of player that would have come in handy, particularly in this period. But you can't. Again, Sunderland look like they're about to cash in on him. So the swings and roundabouts. But yeah, there's not a lot of options there, is there, in terms of fitness at the minute. Mundell's just coming back. You can't. Would you chuck him in? I think, like you say, I think Lebris probably got his team sheet, spot on with the options that he had available to him. It was just one of those nights, I think.
Yeah. So the game started before, as I said, wasn't great. But I do want to highlight one positive, because I think it's worth doing. I thought Brian Brobbey was outstanding from the start. I think when we're talking about a player and who kind of like Mayenda, he's been eased in, hasn't he? He's not played a lot until this period where it's went right. We haven't got the options to change it. Wilson Isidor's injured. There's now a bit of pressure on his shoulders to lead the line. And as bad as we were in that game, I think he fed off scraps for a lot of the game, but he showed why we paid so much money. I think he can be really proud of his performance. And it wasn't necessarily like he had loads of opportunities to score, because he didn't. I just think when you're struggling and you're under pressure and you need somebody just to hang on to the ball, force defenders into giving you fouls and putting the ball into dangerous areas, he gave a masterclass on how to do it. And I think, in a 90 minutes or 90 odd minutes that wasn't really filled with many positives, I think we should probably reserve a bit of praise for him.
Yeah, he was comfortably our best player on the pitch, wasn't he? I think you're right. Like the last week or so, he's been outstanding, in all 3 games. Really, really good footballer. He's turning into a really good, solid number 9 for us, isn't he? Where, he gets goals. He obviously scored that lovely goal against Spurs, really well taken goal. Brings players into the game, makes it just, he must be horrible to try and defend against, because he's just so strong as well, isn't he? I mean, their lad to give away the penalty. He was just having such a hard game against him. And what he does, he makes defenders make those mistakes, because he's that strong. He's that, he's like I say, he's that determined to get the ball, to win the ball and to keep the ball and everything like that. So he's doing really well, Gav. I think when you look at, long term with Brobbey, even this season, if he can get, 8 or 9 goals, even, the magic 10 or whatever, But next season, he'd be one of them ones I'd be really, really excited about if we can get players in and around him who can bang in some goals as well. Because I think he's one of them ones as well who can assist a lot as well. But yeah, you're right. I think yesterday, really, really good game for him, even though we weren't very good. He's definitely now the first choice striker for us, isn't he? Even when Wilson gets back from injury or whatever, Brobbey's going to be starting. Whenever Brobbey's fit, Brobbey starts now for me.
Yeah. Like I say, Matty, I think he really led the line well, and we'll come on to the key moments in a bit, I guess. But I think he showed it in that little phase of play where we won the penalty. It was great forwards play. I think against Tottenham, I think he was, there was times against Tottenham where he was outstanding and scored a really good goal. The Man City game, he bossed Ruben Diaz about. I think if we're chasing positives, he's a big one.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's one of the players who's come in and sort of changed the way that Sunderland have operated, because Wilson, again, I really like Wilson and Sador, but he's not the type of player who's going to hold the ball up and play with his back to goal. You saw that City game was really, really impressive. Brobbey just bullied Diaz. I think it was Diaz, wasn't it, when he's played through on goal. Just puts him on the floor easily, and then again, he's won the penalty against Brentford. The one, again, I have minor gripes with this Sunderland team. And the one gripe that I have is that I don't think they involve him enough. There's times where they have the ball out wide and they don't just try and fizz the ball into his feet. You saw with the goal against Spurs that he's actually really good with the ball in. A quick pass out wide and then back into him, and then he's in and he scored. Now again, brilliant goal.
Sorry, mate, just to step over you there, but we only started doing that when the second half started.
Exactly, yeah. So that's the gripe that I have, is I don't think they don't involve him enough. Yeah. For me. But as you said there, he's really coming into his own. I'm really impressed with him. Again, he's had to bide his time and come into the squad, and he's taken his chance. I agree with Ant. At the minute, he's my first name on the team sheet when it comes to leading the line.
Yeah. Well, the game, as I said, started slowly. Brentford threatened a couple of times, didn't it, to score a goal. Thiago, you can see why everyone's raving about him, why he's, you can't even argue with his scoring record. I think he's the fourth highest scorer in Europe this season. You can see why, because he's so confident and he's a threat always. And just to piggyback off your point there, Matty, when you watch him, look how close Sharda is to him at all times. That's how you get around a big number 9 who holds the ball up. You have to have people playing close to them. And you're right, we don't do that enough with Brian Brobbey. But Thiago, for me, was brilliant from the off. And considering how good we are defensively most of the time, he took us to bits, to be honest. It was really good centre forward play. And that first goal came on 30 minutes, and it was poor from us, I think, Matty, because when you look at it, we up to that point we'd actually conceded possession far too often. The ball was going into the defenders under no pressure, into midfield under no pressure. And we were just playing passes 5 and 10 yards short, and everything was just a bit messy. I mean, Alderete, I love him, but he'd done it probably 4 or 5 times where he passed it straight to a Brentford player and put us under pressure. And this one, though, they get us on the counter-attack, which is something I said we really need to be guarded against after Spurs, because this happened against Tottenham loads as well, where all of a sudden we're chasing back towards our own goal. And Trey Hume's playing him onside. Ballard and Alderete hold the line perfectly. Hume is a good 5 yards behind them and plays him onside. And when we talk about confidence and we talk about quality striker play, that's what you get in spades when you've got a player like Thiago scoring goals as regularly as he is, because he just makes a fool out of Robin Roofs, really. Sells him the dummy, takes it round him, puts it in the back of the net. There's nothing we can do about it. And it's a good goal, but it's a frustrating one from the perspective when you look at Hume. He switched off for a moment there, and it cost us.
Yeah, I think Mukiele's nowhere to be seen either. He's so high up the pitch, thinking that Sunderland are on the attack. Then you've got, I think, is it Chris Riggs scrambling back in midfield? It's a real messy goal to concede, and that's what's been one of Sunderland's strengths this season. I think, like you say there, again, I'm a huge fan of Alderete. I could go through the entire team and say the same thing, but it was poor. Their ability to play out from the back at Brentford, it wasn't wasn't great at all. Yeah, I don't know whether obviously Trey Hume playing at left back has anything to do with it either. I just think, like you say, it was such a frustrating game to watch, because especially when we'll get on it later, the penalty decision, the missed penalty that did change the game. I thought after the second half, Sunderland just started to come out on top a little bit, but yeah, first goal's really poor, and that's it with Thiago. With a player like that, there's no reason why Brian Brobbey can't go on to become like a player like that. I know that Thiago had his injury problems when he first went into Brentford, but you just see, if you get a player close to your striker like that, you bring other players into play, then it's a massive, component of their squad.
Yeah, Matty's right. I don't know how I'd forgot about it, Ant, but it completely slipped my mind that Nordy had kind of marauded into midfield, which generally I've got no problem with, but it's a heavy touch. He's then chasing his touch, which is a good 5-10 yards ahead of him, and Brentford obviously win the ball because it's a little bit easier for them to do so, and they just turn us over really quickly. And as I say, I think in the last couple of games in particular, those turnovers have happened too regularly for me. Maybe that's mitigated when you've got players like Ronaldo and Siddiqui in your squad, because obviously we're a lot better defensively. We're a lot better, structurally with those two players in the team. But regardless, we didn't have them. We were all at 6s and 7s, and you've got unfortunately Trey Hume, and I think Matty's right, because he's at left back. Maybe he's just not quite as switched on as he needs to be when he's looking across the line to see who's there with him. And yeah, it did cost us, but it's just frustrating, isn't it? Because as a squad, Sunderland this season, we haven't let ourselves down like that too often, where we kind of all over the place, but we were on this occasion.
No, you're right. I mean, you could probably say for all three of the goals, we were very similar, weren't they? We were just all over the shop, weren't we? And again, I don't want to make too much of an excuse for it, but probably possibly comes down to the tired legs, one game too far or whatever. But yeah, I mean, Mukiele last night, I thought that was probably his worst game for us. Like, he was poor. Alderweireld just looked all over from the first minute, didn't he? Didn't know where. He looked as if he'd played the game by suffering a concussion in the warm-up or something. He just didn't know where he was, did he, half the time? And then obviously with Ballard coming back from injury and stuff like that, I thought Ballard was just probably the best of a bad bunch at the back. And then a Hume at left back, it is difficult when you have to play on the wrong side of what you're used to, because literally your instinct is, his instinct will be to look to his left for an offside call, whereas now he's having to look to his right, so he's having to try to train his brain to do something completely different. Which he obviously he was a mile behind the defenders as well, wasn't he? But take nothing away from the finish. Like, it's a really nice finish. He just sells roofs, whatever it was, when he just sort of right down the Swanee, and puts it in, and it's a nice goal. And as Matty just said before, that's what I want Brobbey to do eventually. Because there are very similar players. Big, strong centre forwards. The difference is, he's had a player with Sharda who stuck to him quite a lot last night, and Enzo, for all of his wonderfulness that he has done for us so far this season, didn't get close to Brobbey at all yesterday, especially in the first half. Yeah,
and then as the kind of first half petered out, I think I was just glad to get into half time, to be honest. I just was like, we need to get into half time and reset here. Brentford carried on. You can see why they're so high up the table. You can see why they're the best performing home team in the Premier League, because they've got a real relentlessness about them, Matty. And actually, we were talking about this on the preview pod that me and Andrew did, but you've got to give credit to them, that manager, everybody at that club, because the amount of change they went through in the summer, when you consider the players they lost, the personnel they lost, and in terms of Thomas Frank and the captain going, the best player going, the best striker going, all these things happened. Yet they've improved, and I said this on the preview. I said they're a real example to clubs like ours of how you just keep the wheels turning when you've had a bit of change at your club, and no better example than this game, because honestly, the amount of teams who've came up against Sunderland and have played with fear against us just because they know we're so solid this season has helped us immeasurably. We've won loads of points. Brentford didn't fear us at all. They were just not bothered by how good we were at the back. They played their game, and like I say, going into half time, I was just glad it was only 1-0, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you're right in terms of like how Brentford are, viewed in the eyes of other Premier League clubs. It's easy to say it, and then back it up, isn't it? I mean, I remember obviously when we're in the Championship and, there's talk of selling like Ross Stewart, Jack Clark to go and follow your Brentfords and Brighton up to the Premier League. To actually go and do it is an entirely different matter. But like you say, last night, I actually follow a Brentford fan, on social media at the start of the season, and he was giving them pelters for appointing Keith Andrews, but now a penny for his thoughts because, like you say, they're flying high, and they are the first team that I've watched against Sunderland who haven't feared them. They haven't. Again, I don't want teams to come out and start bringing the game to Sunderland and not fearing them or not showing them the respect that Sunderland deserve. But I do feel like that's where some teams have sort of fallen down this season. Brentford came out, and that's the first game this season where I've actually watched and thought, fair play. Like, aside from obviously maybe Man City away, that's the first game, and certainly since then that I've watched and thought the other team just deserves to win. Like, fair enough,
Yeah.
they played really well. They are very similar to Sunderland, I think, just in terms of how they approach the game with they're really strong at set pieces, etc. But yeah, full credit Keith Andrews and Brentford there because they're doing a really good job.
Right, we'll quickly shoot for a break and we'll come back and chat about the second half and, of course, that penalty miss, which we're all dying to chat about, I'm sure. We'll see you after the break.
Maybe you like cooking. Maybe you don't. Either way, the new Blue Apron is for you. Because along with our classic meal kits, we're offering new pre-made and one-pan meals to help you get dinner on the table fast. And now there's no subscription needed, so you can just order and enjoy. Do delicious food your way. Shop 100+ meals at blueapron.com. Get 50% off your first 2 orders with code APRON50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
And welcome back to Howie the Podcast, sponsored by LiveScoreBet. And as I said before the break there, we're going to chat about the second half. Now, actually, Ant, I thought in that period between the second half kicking off and us winning the penalty, I thought we were excellent. I think we clearly gone in at half time. The lads had a good chat about what needed to be done. The tempo was better. People were getting closer to Brian Brobbey, as I said earlier. We were zipping it around a lot quicker. We were more direct. I think I even heard commentators, I think it was Rob Green on commentary, even refer to that, saying, Sunderland have got a little bit more direct and it's working. And we were just so much better, which on one hand, you sit there and you think, well, why couldn't we have been like that from the first minute of the game, not the first minute of the second half, but still. But on the other hand, great reaction, like genuinely great reaction. We were only 1-0 down. We showed why we are a good team in that little period. And yeah, I just thought we were pretty good.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Even before, I know the subs came on the 50th minute, but even before then, we had a really, really good chance, didn't we, when I think the ball fell to Adingra, and he turns in, you think, well, I have a shot, but it's on his left foot, so he's not going to do that. But his ball back to the Lafayette was just so power, because he put it on the Lafayette's left foot, didn't he? And Lafayette, what to wrap his foot around at the end of it. He had to try and kind of loop it, didn't he? And it kind of went over the bar. But that was a good chance. And then obviously before the penalty, he finds Romain Mundle, and Romain Mundle just gets a little bit stuck of what to do, doesn't he? And he kind of holds back, takes a touch, and then just, I don't know what the finish is, to be honest. I think it was, saw his name in lights, didn't he? And thought this would be first goal in the Premier League, but ended up, completely slicing it. We won a corner from it, but we had chances up before the penalty, so it was a very, very good reaction. Again, it was just reminding us a lot of the Spurs game where we were poor first half. We've had a little bit of a rollicking off Reggie, and then in the second half he would come. And this was what I was hoping the second half was going to turn into, just us finding an equaliser, maybe pushing for a win or something like that, and end up being a very good point despite not playing very well. But I'm going to segue us lovely into the penalty there, Gav, I think.
Well, the decision for the penalty first, Matty, I was praising Brian Brobbey before. Excellent by him. He done what he'd done probably 4 or 5 times already in the game, where he gets touched tight to the defender and they just can't get near him because he's actually not that tall, Brian Brobbey. He's just wide. He's like a fridge, and they try and kind of wrap their legs around him and they just can't do it. And on this occasion, the ball's played into him where that's exactly what you should be doing with him. Get it into his feet, don't play it high, play it into his feet, let him do what he's good at. And the lads did that. And I think it was, who was that? Was it Janelt? Or I can't remember. It was one of the two lads playing further back who fouled him. But regardless, they get lured into diving in on him. It's clear penalty. There's no disputing it. But it was really good forward play by Brian Brobbey in that instance.
Yeah, I think it was Aya, wasn't it, who brings him down. That's exactly what I want. If I'm picking a team, that's exactly what I want from my striker. You know, you see, they just couldn't live with him in that moment. Sunderland had all the momentum at that point in the game, and when they won that penalty, I'm sat there rubbing my hands together going, here we go, we're getting another sort of comeback. Because that's something that Regis Lebrie's done so well during his time at Sunderland, is if he makes subs or if he has a break in play, like, he changes things tactically, and Sunderland did come out on top for that period in the second half. Obviously, there's the two chances that were mentioned earlier. But Brobbey in particular in that moment, just that's what frustrates the life out of us at times when Sunderland are building up. Just pin the ball into his feet and he'll bring other players into the game, and that is exactly what he did there. There was a slight, twinge when I saw him go down. I thought, is the way he's going to have gone to the ground? Is the referee going to have thought he's bought it? But, it was a penalty. Right decision and good hold-up play from your striker. That's exactly what you want.
Yeah. And then the penalty, well... oh, God. For anybody who missed the game or has missed the commentary of this particular moment, we get a penalty, no disputing it. Enzo Lafay, who's, of course, scored 2 penalties this season, so he naturally is the penalty taker, grabs the ball, puts it down, and decides to dink it down the middle when we're 1-0 down. I love Enzo Lafay. I actually think he's been probably over the last 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks maybe, he's probably been our best player. I actually think he's played really, really well. But it was unforgivable. Like, I don't understand what he's doing.
Yeah. So, I've got I see the beauty, not the beauty. I've got the unfortunate thing of being older than certainly used to here. I think that's the worst thing I've ever seen. Swallowing something. I've got to be honest. The worst decision I think I've ever seen. And this is going back to the Jeff Whit, just because of how good Enzo Lafay is. And he's a fantastic man. I remember, the Jeff Whitley penalty against Palace, which was pretty much the same. Apart from, I don't think Jeff Whitley was trying to Panenka. I just think Jeff Whitley's penalty was shit. The Mickey Gray against Sasevich at Wembley, where he back-passed it to him. That's probably the worst penalty I've seen from a Sunderland player. And, it's just what's going through his head, Gav. I don't understand it. The fact that the 2 penalties Enzo Lafay's had for us this season have come when we're 1-0 down. Brentford at home, we're 1-0 down. He puts the keeper the wrong way. It's a brilliant penalty. We're 2-0 down to Bournemouth. And he blasts it past the keeper. It's a brilliant penalty. You're thinking, right, just do that again. Hit it as hard as you can or whatever. What I really struggle to understand with Endo, and only he can tell us what I don't think we'll ever hear about it, what went through his head was when we are 1-0 down and we've played badly and we've got this lifeline, and as Matty's just put there, Brobbey's done brilliant to win that penalty. What is going through his head there to think, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to try and Panenka it against a goalkeeper who is very, very good at saving penalties. He's got a very good penalty record, his colour. He's a good goalkeeper. What the hell's he thinking about? You know what I mean? I would have been fuming even if he'd done that at 3-0 up. But I would have been like, whatever. You know what I mean? We've won the game. I hate them things. I really do. And for me, it's just epitomises what yesterday was. Very, very tired minds and bad decision making. It's a shocking decision from him. I would have personally, and I'd have had him off, mate. If he was thankfully, I'd have sucked him up straight away. Off you go. You know what I mean? Get in the shower. Think about what you've done. Walk home. Palaver. But what I will see it as well for it, because I've got obviously we've had 12 hours now to recover from it, and I'm nowhere near as angry as I was last night. I mean, I think we were talking in our little group chat where Gav, I was kicking the dog kind of angry, and I don't kick my dog just to say that, you know what I mean? But it was, It was that angry. Ornaments
Just
were
in
going to get
case anyone
thrown.
from the RSPCA are listening.
Yes,
yeah.
just in case anyone from the RSPCA is listening, I am a very responsible and very loving dog owner. But, you know, ornaments were get thrown, the television remote, I think, fell on the floor, all that palaver. But what I will say as well, I think there has been a lot of, an overreaction, you know, to say, like, you know, it is difficult. It's a stupid decision. But, you know, we've got to remember as well, and you pointed out there, he's been outstanding this season. He really has. You know, he's been brilliant. And we wouldn't be in this position where we are now for Enzo Lefebvre. If he hasn't put that corner in for Dan Ballard against Coventry, who knows what happens? You know what I mean? The man's class. You know, I love him to bits. But, like I say, just don't do it again, basically. I'd have him off penalties now, Gav. I don't know what you think, but I'd give the penalty. I'd literally give him give the penalty decision to someone else. But what I will do is Saturday coming up, I'd have him starting, and I'd just get it out your system, and that's what we need to do with him. It just, you know, we've got everything in the cupboard. You know, we probably are going to make changes. I'd imagine a few of the AFCON lads will play and stuff like that. But I would have him starting and just let it get him out of his system, because the longer you keep him off the pitch, I think is going to be a bit detrimental, because he's got too much time to think about it.
Yeah, it's one of them, Matty, isn't it? Where in the fullness of time, you know, if he scores that, we're hailing him as a genius. We'd be sitting there going, "Oh, that was lush, wasn't it?" You know, he just dinks it down the middle. Kelleher goes to his left. Oh, it's in the back of the net. What a penalty! But when it doesn't go right, you're made to look like an absolute mug, and that's what happened. And it's just. I still don't, even 12 hours on, I still don't understand what the hell he was thinking, like.
No, I'm not. It's hard to put it into words, isn't it? Like, I completely agree with you. I actually thought Enzo was my player of the half for the first half. I thought he was absolutely superb. But then, that's completely forgotten about by the time this penalty's come around. I think I tweeted at the time, like, what on earth is he doing? Like you say there, Enzo's fantastic. He's one of these players who's a bit of a maverick. But that... Oh, man, those type of penalties just do my head in at the best of times. Like, just step up and smash it. Just smash it. At the period in the game, you know your team's not playing too well. That was vital. That could have changed the game, flipped it on its head, and then obviously Brentford go up the other end a couple of minutes later and score, and you just left there. Like, I was left there scratching the top of my head, just thinking, like, what have I just seen? Like, I love Enzo, and again, he's been fantastic the last couple of weeks. He's the type of player who's going to try that. For me, try it when you're 2-0 up, 3-0 up. I'm not bothered about it if he misses. I wouldn't go as far as taking him off penalties. I just think, give him the next penalty, don't miss it. Just blast the next one. There you go. And then that penalty's then all forgotten about. But for me, I just don't know what he was doing. Like, he's taken to social media, hasn't he, afterwards, well, overnight, and says, you know, it was a tough night, want to move on, etc. Yeah, penny for his thoughts in that moment, like when he's missed it, because it's bad enough missing a penalty anyway, let alone in that manner. Yeah, just I don't know what he was doing.
Do you remember last season
think,
as well?
To be honest,
like,
lads, I think.
Sorry, Gav. Sorry. Do you remember last season when Wilson missed 2 against Burnley, wasn't it? And I'm like less angry about that one, you know, when Wilson missed 2, because at least Wilson like blasted them, and to be fair to James Trafford, he's made 2 good saves. Whereas that, yes, had he hit it and Kelleher makes the save and tips around the post or whatever, it's a good penalty, well struck penalty, tips around the post. That happens in football, doesn't it? You know, and like I say, Kelleher's a good penalty saver. You know, had that happened, I don't think we're talking about it. It's just whatever, you know what I mean? That happens, it's football. It's the fact that he's thought about doing that at 1-0 down is what I'm most furious about. You know, and again, Matty's put the point on, had he done it 2 or 3-0 up, you going, you stupid idiot, you know what I mean? You freaking idiot, you know? Like, because as you said, you've made it look like an absolute plum, and rightfully so, to be honest, for having the cheekiness to do that, because it's you know, it's a really really cheeky thing to do. It's an arrogant thing to do, and you know, I don't think Enzo Lefebvre is arrogant at all. You know what I mean? But the fact that he is this maverick footballer, and the fact, you know, he's probably thought, you know what I'll do here, I'll make him look like a right Charlie. But the joke's on him now, innit? And the fact that he's done it 1-0 down is the more, that's the unforgivable part about it, Gav. You know, like the fact that, you know, we've worked our way back into the game, Brobbey's done brilliantly to win that penalty. You know, we've played badly. This is the lifeline. And you know, again, you know, you don't know what would have happened had it gone in. But we were on top in the game. We were in the ascendancy. That would have given us a little bit more to put Brentford down. And he's fucking done that. It's like, oh, it's getting us angry. right, stop. Talk about something else.
Well, I think what is true is that it completely killed us, that moment, because we had momentum. You know, we come out, as I said, second half played really, really well, and you could just see visibly the team's just confidence lowered, heads dropped. You know, players were probably thinking the same thing as us. Like, what the hell has he done that for? You know, when you've got momentum and you're stunted in that manner, it's impossible to pick yourself back up. I can completely understand why things just felt a bit after that point, because we were on the floor sort of after that. You know, that's the fine margins, and particularly in the Premier League against good teams. If it's ones each, it's game on, and I fancy us to get something, another goal. So it would totally different game, but it's not. It's 1-0, and it's a matter of minutes later, Matty, when they score their second, and it's an absolute mess at the back. I think it starts off. Getroida tries to play a 5-yard pass to Alderete under no pressure, and plays it 10 yards in front of him. So Brentford then goes like 3v3 against us. It's like, I don't understand what the hell happened, but the break, we get away with it to an extent, because I think does it hit the bar? I can't remember now.
Post, doesn't it? Hits the
post, yeah. Yeah, and then on the follow-up, we pile bodies back into the box because the midfield realise, shit, we need to get back. And I think it's Sharda peels off to the back post, heads it back across the 6-yard box, and there's that man Thiago again, and it's a good header. I think Hume and Roof's kind of getting each other's way, which prevents them getting anywhere near the ball, and it's 2-0. But it was just a mess, and yeah, it came from that moment. It came from missing the penalty, because the confidence was on the floor. We hadn't had that chance for the game to breathe even. Like, you know, if somebody had went down injured and we had a couple of minutes where the lads could have went to the touchline, got a drink, spoke to Regis and picked themselves back up, it would have been useful, but we didn't. And look, we were the architects of our own downfall. Like I say, it all started with a really slack pass from Getroida, and, you know, then the ball's in the back of the net.
Yeah, I think I watched the penalty back earlier, and you see Mukiele just behind Lafay when he misses it, and his head's like in his hands. You've got Brobbey turning away, and the heads just dropped. I think even for the second goal, watched it back. Where is Mukiele? Like, he's nowhere to be seen at that moment. Now, I know look, when it works, it works. That Sunderland play with their full-back high to, you know, you have a midfielder roll in. But they were just like all over the place. They were just completely caught out. There wasn't any real energy to get back in, like bust a gut to get back. I think there was 3 players back, wasn't there? When obviously, you know, Brentford had like 2 men over at the far post for the first ball in after that Getroida slack pass. And it's just, they just didn't recover from that. They didn't recover from being out of position. And even when, you know, the ball's gone into Sharda at the back post, that he's got, you know, more or less a free header that leaves Thiago unmarked in the middle. It was just a real mess. And yeah, I mean, I think if you can take a positive out of that, it's uncharacteristic of Sunderland. They don't do that a lot, and they haven't done that a lot this season. But that moment itself was, there was loads of moments that epitomised the game, the penalty miss, that pass. It was just a real sloppy performance, and it's not something that we've seen a lot this season.
No, and it went on from there, and I think Brentford's tails were up, and they just went for us. And I said this before, but that's why they're so high in the table. That's why they're a good home team. That's why they've got one of the best goal scorers in Europe on the pitch, because they smelled blood, and Sunderland were all over the place. We were an absolute mess. We were tired. We were probably on the floor confidence-wise, and we were vulnerable is the main thing. And yeah, I think, what was it, 7 minutes later they get the third goal, which is another messy one. And I think, you know, set pieces, we've been pretty strong on set pieces this season, I think. You know, we've conceded from them, but we haven't conceded loads. We generally were pretty strong. I've watched the goal back again a couple of times now, and a bit like the Tottenham one, we just don't look organised in the box. There's a big clutch of players around the penalty spot, the Brentford and Sunderland players. The ball gets zipped into that area, and it kind of falls to Yarmulke, and he gets a shot away and he scores. And that's apparently his first goal for Brentford in 90-odd games. So just to add insult to injury, he doesn't even score goals, but there we go. He gets the third, completely kills the game off. Game over, job done from Brentford's perspective, but really, really poor from ours.
Yeah, it made me turn it off, I've got to be honest. It was, that multi-view, that Sky, I ended up just watching that to see what was going on, if anything else was exciting. But you're right. I think, it's just, tired heads, tired minds, and the heads are gone. The heads are dropped after that penalty miss, and I suppose that is a little bit disappointing, isn't it? Because even though, Lafayette does that, we're still 1-0 down. And the fact that we just let them, score a second goal, which is really poor defending, which Mike talks about. I think that's just as bad as the penalty miss. The fact that we've just rolled down and got our bellies tipping after that penalty miss is just as bad for me, because, at 1-0, even though we missed the penalty, it's still only 1-0, and we're still on top, and, the fact we let them score again, it's poor. But yeah, that corner is just a mess, isn't it? It's a complete utter mess. We let them win the first contact, yes, they get a bit lucky with the way it falls to, is it Yarmulke, you said, who scored, first goal in 90 appearances. Yeah. So, we've turned into that Sunderland team who let, players who never score against us again. Turned into all that. It was just, that would have summed the night. That summed the night up for me. That the fact, it's awful defending, and a lad who's never scored for Brentford before manages to score. It's just, I got on the knee, brother. So, yeah, it was just a poor all around. But, like I say, if we're digging out Enzo for the penalty miss, which is rightfully so, we need to look at the players whose heads just go, because for me, that's just not good enough. You're on the pitch for 90 minutes. So, let's, we have got standards. And after, certainly last night, them standards were nowhere near where they should be. But certainly after the penalty miss, we've just gone all to hell, haven't we? We've just, like I say, we wanted to be off that pitch as quick as possible after that penalty miss. And, it ended up with being a 3-0 victory, which I do think flattered Brentford. I don't think it was a 3-0 game, but, it is what it is. When you're playing, as you said, Gav, sides who were very good at home, sides who are on a high, they're up to 5th in the table now, aren't they? And a lot of people had them written off at the start of the season, especially losing, Mbeumo, Wissa, obviously losing the manager, losing the goalkeeper, lost some good players, and the fact they've managed to replace them well, and the fact that they've, recruited from within to get the manager in, I think is a very brave choice. And, I think a lot of us and a lot of people in football would have had Andrews down to be one of the first to be sacked. He's got them 5th in the table just after Christmas. What a fantastic job. And we need to look at, because we're going to lose players. We're going to lose players along the way. We've got some fantastic footballers who'll go for good money. We need to look at what Brentford have done. The fact they've managed to replace, striker after striker after striker. They've got Thiago, who looks to be one of the best in Europe. It's phenomenal, the work they've done, mind. Really, really good, and fair play to them, But, they did us last night, to be fair to them. So, there we go.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to underline the point, I guess, Matty, we made a bunch of subs. Certain came on for Ballard, and you saw him hobbling off. I don't think he's injured per se. I think he's probably playing with a knock, and the physical toll of just playing so many games has probably took its toll at that point. But Certain comes on for Ballard. Dan Neil came on, which says it all, I think. Dan Neil's never been seen for months, and then he's on the pitch. And Luke O'Nien came on for Omar Alderete. I think just that kind of underlined how stretched we are, because I genuinely think that by the time we play Crystal Palace in, 19 days or whatever, I don't know how many days it is, 13 days, whatever it is. Not that long anyways.
11,
we're playing
Gav.
Palace soon.
Yeah.
And is it 11, is it? I haven't even looked at the fixtures. Cheers for looking. There's a real strong
it's
possibility.
9,
Some of
sorry.
those players
It's a week
who came
on
the
Saturday.
pitch.
It's a week on Saturday, Gav.
All
Just
right, well,
checked.
neither of us can count. So, the fact that some of the players who came on probably won't even make the bench for that game, and kind of tells you how stretched we are.
Yeah, I was a little surprised. Again, just from I think taking into perspective the Spurs game, Sunderland did look a little leggy. Now I know there's things going on behind the scenes in terms of obviously Dan Neil's contract, same with Dennis Sirkin. We've seen that from Labrie in recent weeks that's not going to be an issue because he's played Sirkin. I can't quite get my head around how Dan Neil, I know the standards, I know there's a gulf in class, but how Dan Neil has gone from being captain to now all of a sudden isn't deemed good enough to play his position alongside Xhaka in midfield. Now, when Gertrude, I don't think he had a good game either, to be honest with you. But when he did, I would have liked to have seen, that was a game where you can make changes. Now, again, I understand why Labrie hasn't. And like you say there, there's a real lack of options, and when those players do return from AFCON, Habib Diarra in particular is going to be like a new signing, but they are just light on options, and I think that just was epitomised in this game. It was a game that was too far. Brentford could as well have 4-0. It could have been 4-0 with Nelson's chance in the final few minutes. It was one of those games where you come up against an established Premier League side and you just have to hold your hands up and be like, yeah, fair play. The better team won. Hopefully, with a little break, obviously it's FA Cup, then back in action later on against, was it Palace, did you say? Then, yeah, I think Labrie does need to give, one or two a rest before then and change things for the FA Cup.
Yes, it kind of feels like we've reached that point, though, where we can see the light now at the end of the tunnel with all this AFCON stuff. And I really want to see us have a good cup run, so I'm torn on this. But I understand that we've asked a lot of this squad over the last few weeks to be able to perform to the level they have. Like we can't let this Brentford result cloud just how well we've done. We picked up 4 draws on the bounce, tough games. Man City, Tottenham, Leeds, all good teams in their own right. We've picked up draws where in the past Sunderland teams wouldn't have got draws in them games. We've gone behind in games and found ways back into them. All with this squad, a very, very limited group of players who we're asking a lot of. So we can't get too caught up in this Brentford game is my point. I just think it's very easy to get negative and start like picking faults and wanting an inquest into why things have gone wrong. I think it's very easily explained, this performance, this result. This squad is tired. It's tired. It's been asked to do a lot. We haven't had the luxury a lot of teams have had in the Premier League of rotating players out, because of the sheer volume of players we've lost. Not just to AFCON, by the way, because we lost Ballard to injury. Isidor's missed the last few. So, we're being stretched by injury too, on top of the issue we've already got. So, it would be very easy, wouldn't it, to just get caught up in this, keep going on about that Enzo penalty, keep going on about the way we capitulated. I think it's easily explained. You can understand why this game happened in the way it did.
Oh, 100%. And as you said before, and I don't want to keep going back to the City game, but the amount they ran against City, they were never going to be able to do it after 3 games. And it's pretty much, as I said before, it was like, I think it was one of the first points I made. Pretty much, he's used 13, 14 players. Dan Neil got 10 minutes, and I got 10 minutes, but normally he's made 2 subs or something. It's been like Mundle and Enzo last night, Mundle and Rig or whatever. He hasn't had that, opportunity to, as you said, to mix and match. We've had to run on the same team pretty much for the last 4 games, and they are going to get tired. It's a long, long season. We've got players who played a lot of games now. And I think the cup game, I think's a really good opportunity for to try a couple of things. But I'm with you. If we flip-flop these results and we lost 3-0 at home to City and then got a draw last night, we're not talking about it, are we? It's just that you think, you're still going away thinking it's a good Christmas. And I think that, everyone said we were going to have a bad December. We haven't. We've had a really good December. Everyone thought we'd struggle during AFCON. In a way we have with players, but we've still got some good results. So we're okay. And then, as you said, in 9 days' time, Crystal Palace, fingers crossed, got everyone back, we've got everyone back fresh, and you'll see a different performance altogether, won't you? Because it'll be, players who will come back who are, better quality than what have been playing, and we can mix and match. So I've got no worries. At all. I'm really looking forward to the cup game as well, I've got to be honest. Going down there, I'm really, really looking forward to the game. I think you can make a few changes here there. And you know, Everton are there to be shot at. You know, they couldn't beat Wolves last night. So, you know, we're still there. And they've got, I think half the team's missing because they all got sent off. So, I think we'll be okay. It'll be a good game, that.
Yeah. It's been a bit like therapy, this, Matty. Are you feeling a little bit better having talked about it and got it out your system?
I am, to be fair. Now we've spoken about it, and it's I'll still be frustrated about it. But I think, you know, like you were saying there, in hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Had Sunderland won the game, they would have been up in 5th. And, you know, that is not, I can't believe I'm saying that statement after, you know,
exactly.
the years of turmoil that we've had to sit through watching Sunderland in League One. Obviously, you know, it's an old record that keeps getting played, you know, that League One tenure. But to see where they are at the minute, how many points they've taken, it's easy to forget that Sunderland were the favourites to go down, and that, you know, in isolation, it was a poor performance yesterday. But still, you know, that's down to standards that those players have set. So, yeah, I'm glad we've got that therapy session out of the way. I feel a little bit.
And Matty, as well, you know, you've got to be looking at after the cup game, which, you know, I'm not bothered what happens again on Saturday. I'd like to win, whatever. But then we've got Crystal Palace at home, who are struggling, West Ham away, who are struggling, Burnley at home, who are struggling. So, you know, like in 9 days' time with a fresh squad, with fresh, you know, impetus, everything like that, and we're playing them games a week apart and everything like that. So we're out of this horrible run. You know, so we're going to have, you know, some rest and everything like that. We've got 3 games where you look at that where I think we're probably favourites for all 3. So, you know, it's a good chance to get us back.
There's a possibility of new faces coming in as well, isn't there? I know there was a bit of a hoo-ha on social media last night about Regis Labrie being misquoted. He said to us a few months ago, for what it's worth, that they were eyeing 2 or 3 positions. So that a lot of that, I think, will depend on the type of players that they get out. So again, if you bring in another 2-3 players, reinvigorate the squad a little bit more energy, then, like you say, there's no reason why Sunderland can't, you know, especially as well.
Yeah. Well, I think I do feel a lot better after that. Hopefully the listeners do as well. Hopefully you've calmed down and can see the bigger picture, because I think that's the big thing here. We are 10th in the Premier League. We do have 30 points on board, and it is the 8th of January. So, and as Matty says, we could have went 5th. So, you know, these are the things that are going on right now. There's nothing to worry about, certainly. Look, I would much rather we had a league game coming up at the weekend rather than a cup game, but it's a chance to reset. We'll come back after that little cup break, I guess. I would call it a break. And as you said, Ant, we've got some games where you're looking at it and you're probably thinking a bit more optimistically, with players returning, with a fit.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
A sharper squad. We know what this team can do, and yeah, let's just keep the faith. That's the point I want to end on. Thank you very much, Matty. Really appreciate your time, mate. It's been great.
Thanks very much for having us on. Good to chat again.
Yeah, and cheers, Ant. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, and thanks to the listeners. Like I say, hopefully you feel a little bit better having listened to us chat that through. Hopefully you'll join us tomorrow for the next pod. Make sure you get subscribed to Howie the Podcast if you're not already subscribed. We'll see you later.